Before we begin our class, do remember those who need our prayers, those that are sick, those that are not able to be out and about. Certainly keep them in your prayers. I know they would appreciate it. Pick up a bulletin. There's a list of those people that need our prayers there, and we need to keep them in mind and remember them. Before we begin our class this morning, Bill, will you lead us in a word of prayer?
Father, come before you this time. We do thank you for everything you give us. This time we can come to study. This, the garbage and the rest of it all, so it may gain additional knowledge, Father, to put your lives and serve thee, Father. We ask you to forgive us the actions of our life, Father, and be with that sick, Father, among us. That be thy will that they be restored. Continue with us that Bible study through the next service also.
Amen. Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 through verse 33, Dave. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 through verse number 33, which is the end of that chapter. We want to read that this morning. Read, Dave.
Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church, and gave himself for it, and he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, and he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own body. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. No man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery that I speak concerning Christ in the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband.
All right, women, y'all can relax. This lesson don't have anything to do with y'all. This has to do with us. Y'all get a day off. No. This morning I want us to look at, and I want us to see and zero in. In fact, we're going to look at it, and this is how we have entitled this particular section, is husbands. Because whether there is ever one thing that is lacking in our world, in our homes, is we need men to step up and accept the responsibility that is laid upon them by that of God, in that they are to be the head of that for as their family is concerned. And so as we look at this morning, I want us to zero in on this, and I want us to zero in on the importance of it. Now, we're not going to go from verse number 22, 23, but we're going to take, there's 5 points we want to make from this. And we want to begin, and we want to try to put them together and to teach you a great lesson concerning husbands. The first one we want to see is found in verse number 31. Here, brethren, first of all, to be a husband, you've got to be a part of what? Marriage. Marriage. And there's not enough time this morning for us to say everything that needs to be. But to be a husband, we got have to involve with that where marriage is concerned. Here in verse number 31, Dave read there a moment ago, for this cause shall a man leave his father and his mother, shall cleave unto his own wife, and they two shall become one flesh. That same idea is set forth by God in the very beginning as he deals with that of Adam and Eve. Because you remember there, one of the very things that Adam is instructed to do is to leave his father and his mother and to cleave unto his own wife, and they two twain shall become one flesh. The institution of that of the home, or marriage, we have it here. Now, you remember in Matthew 19 when Jesus is answering the question concerning these particular people who were trying to entrap him, where he simply said concerning, can a man put away his wife for every cause? You remember what he said concerning that of God? Have you not read that he that made them in the beginning made them what? Male and female. So when we look at the marriage as God designed it, as spelled out in that, for as the Bible is concerned, it is between a woman and a man and a woman. You never do you see where God sanctions where two men are to marry, or two women are to marry. This is not what God would have us to do. Brethren, homosexuality has become the norm with so many people today. But that still does not make it right, and neither does it make it that it has God's approval. But oh, God made these people that way. God did not make them that way. They are that way because of what? Choice. They choose to be. They choose to be these kind of people. And this is the thing that people need to realize. And this is not the way it was. Because when we look at 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse number 2, what is it that Paul tells us there? Let every man have his what? His own wife, and every woman have her own husband. Husbands, wives, men, women. And you never have homosexual marriages. And this, when you read Genesis chapter 22, Romans chapter 1, God does what? He without any question, condemns this. Condemns this type of relationship that people choose to be. So, first of all, to be a husband, they are to be engaged in that of a marriage to a woman. And to a woman, they are to be. And this is the thing that has to be. You can't be a husband married to a man. It never has been, never will be, never intended to be. And this is the thing that is spelled out for us the Bible is concerned, and about that for us the Bible. And this is the thing that people need to understand in connection with it. Hebrews chapter 13, where what is verse number 4? Marriage is to be honored among all. God recognized marriage. God not only recognizes but establishes the importance for us marriage is concerned. And he wants man to understand this is where you are to be involved with that, for is your wife, your the person that you have chosen. Now, I want you to see the next point. Here we move from the very fact of that of being a husband by that of engaging in a marriage between that of a what? Between that of a woman and a man. Now, watch what Paul tells, or God through Paul tells these people at Ephesus at this particular time. Look at what is it, verse number 23. The husband then is what? Is the head. Is the head of that, for as the wife is concerned, even as Christ is the head of the church and is the Savior of the body. Here again, this is an idea that certainly that people need to realize. Somebody said, but I don't want to be the head. Then look, be a hermit. That's all I can tell you. You see, well, but I just want to, no. You see, we don't get to pick and choose here. You're a husband, you're a what? You're the head. You're the head. I mean, that's what's there. That's what God has placed you there. God made it this way. And it's not something that, well, I won't, no. We need men to step up to the plate and accept the responsibility that goes with being a husband. Be the head. Be the head of that for as the wife, that family is concerned. Stop trying to make excuses. Stop trying to say it. No, accept the responsibility that goes with it. Now, when you look back in that for as the patriarchal age of that of man, this age, the patriarchal age, brethren, was simply that of what? The rule by that of the fathers. Now, when you come to the Mosaical period, I do not find where that situation actually changed any at all. And when you come to the Christian age, what does Paul say here? The husband is what? The head. He's the head. Now, when we stop and we look at this idea for just a moment, because time doesn't give us enough to deal with every aspect of it, but when we think about the husband being the head, he is to be the head provider. He is to be the head protector. He is to be the head leader and guiding and directing of that for which the home is concerned. Somebody said, well, I don't... I'm telling you, brethren, this is where the real problem comes. This is where the real difficulty has come. In so many situations where men do not provide. They don't provide for their wives. They don't provide for their children. They don't provide for that home as they ought to. And when that is the case, brethren, then it creates problems and it creates difficulties and things that come about for as this situation is concerned. And this is the thing that people need to understand. The husband is the head. He is the head. And when we stop and we think about this very idea, or as the head is concerned, you see, when God designed the home, when God designed the family, God designed this situation. He didn't go outside of that family, outside of that home situation, and try to find somebody to be the head. It's the who? The husband. The husband. And we need to realize that. And we need to understand that. And that's exactly what he's telling us here. And that's the thing that is there. He's the head, and he is to be there. And brethren, when he accomplishes the design that God had for that, for as the husband is concerned, there's no problem. Now, when we stop and we look at any particular aspect for his life is concerned, we understand the importance of the head. Think about a company that has been successful. What is at the top of that successful company? A head. A head, that's there. You stop and you think about the government that we have at the head of the government. There is a head. There is a president. And when we stop and we think about schools that are successful, there are what? There are heads. And so it is with the family. We want the family to be what God would have it to be, then there is to be the head. There is marriage. Then for the husband, then there is not only marriage, but then there is also the very fact that he is to accept the responsibility of being the head. Then, notice, what is it? Verse number 22 and verse number 31. The wife then does what? He earns the very respect of that, for as the wife is concerned. He earns that. Why? Because he accepts his responsibility as a husband. He understands his responsibility as a husband, and therefore she then respects him and has deep respect for him, because he is the kind, he is the very way that he ought to be. Now, I'm trying to think how many years ago it's been many years ago. I had a woman that came to me, and she said to me, she said, do I have to respect my husband? And she gave me an example of the situation. She said, whenever he comes in and he's dog drunk and all this, do I have to Brethren, there is nothing in that, for as the Bible is concerned, that spells out that he has to be ideal to have respect. I know that's a hard pill to swallow with so many people, and I know that that's not what most people want. But brethren, I do not know. I do not know where that person can draw a line here and say, well, because he is not the ideal husband. He is not the ideal mate. He's not the ideal, so I don't have it. I don't know that the New Testament teaches that in any particular aspect. Now, one of the very things that is spelled out in the New Testament is this, that she certainly has a responsibility to strive to live in a way that would set forth before him the importance of being what God would have him to be. We see this spelled out in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse number 1 as well. So, you say, well, what do you, it ain't a matter of what I think or what I don't. I just don't know that there is anything that says that, look, you can draw a line here and say, you don't have you don't have to respect your husband if he's not the most ideal person. There is nothing in there. There's nothing spelled out there. It's kind of like whenever when we look at, of course, the Bible is concerned, whether you look at Ephesians chapter 6 or you look at Exodus chapter 20, it says, honor your father. Do you have to honor your father if he's not a good father? You see, this is what you get into. And there's nothing there that says that we are allowed to dishonor our father because he's not the person that he ought to be. This is one of the things that is there. The thing is, what we want to make sure that we do is that we do everything that we can do to make sure we earn the respect of our husband and to live in such a way as to bring honor to that of God and to his cause by the way we conduct ourselves whereas our lives are concerned. But I happen to think of this because that was asked of me, and it was some years ago. I was in a meeting in this little town, and this lady came to me. In fact, I knew this lady and knew her and her family, but and I knew a little bit about where her husband is concerned and where his situation was as well. So when we look, then here as Paul describes the husband, he is to realize that he is to be married to his wife. He is to accept the responsibility of being that of the head of that family, and that he is to earn the very respect of that of his wife by the way he lives and by the way he conducts himself as a husband and as the very person who is the head of that, for as the family is concerned. Then look what he says here concerning this. Then he simply says that what? That the wife or the husband is to do what else? The husband, verse number 25, that the husband is to love your wife, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Now here we see the comparison that God makes between that of the husband and wife and Christ and the church. when we look at this idea, and we look at this particular thought, brethren, we see that here he has the kind of love that is needed, the kind of love that certainly that needs to be had. You know, when we look at this idea for his love is concerned, and the love that he would have for her, when you make the comparison between Christ and the church, and the husband and the wife, he is to have the kind of love that Christ had for the church. Now, when you look at the love that Christ had for the church, brethren, there is no question about it. What kind of love did he have for it? First of all, brethren, he was willing to give. He had a giving love. A giving love. You know, when you think about this idea for us a giving love is concerned, this is spelled out to us in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through 3. Agape love. What kind of love is agape love? It is that which desires the very highest good of that of someone else. All right, when we stop and we look at this and we see that this is, and this is what he says here, the person who's willing to do what? Give the very best. Give what? Give all that he has. Give all that he has to take it. Now, when we look at this, we look at Jesus and we think about him as far as the church is concerned. He had a giving love. He was willing to give as far as the church is concerned. Now here he's simply saying, husbands, you need to love your wives this way. Be willing to give. One of the very things, and brethren, I've seen this happen more times than I like to even think about. When husbands won't do what? Give to help their wives. I had a friend one time. He and her both are both dead now. But here she had to beg him to give her things. Here he want her to do things, and she would have to beg and bribe and plead. Brethren, that ought not to be. That's not the kind of love that he's telling us here. We ought to give. Be willing to give. And understand the importance of giving. And this is the very thing that people need to realize as well. So when we look, we are to give. And to that kind of love, give to our wives. Give them the very things that are there. I know it sometimes people say, well, look at the situation. Are we seeking the highest good for as our mate is concerned? Are we seeking the highest good for them? And this is the thing that we're to do. What else did Jesus do? What kind of love did he have? Giving love. But also, brethren, forgiving love. Willing to forgive. Willing to forgive. You know, one of the very things that it takes in light of being forgiving, brethren, is the very fact here, as people repent, that ought to just be automatic for us. Automatic. That we say what? Here they say, I'm sorry. Then we do what? Here they are. They're repenting. But I don't know if they're really true. It ain't for you to decide this. You see, this is the thing that people need to understand. As far as forgiveness is concerned, Colossians 3, verse 13, forgive one another. You see, it's easy for us, brethren, sometimes to do what? You know, one of the things that we looked at last week in talking about that, you remember when the scribes and the Pharisees brought this woman that they said that was caught in adultery before that of Jesus. And one of the very points that we made concerning that of Jesus is the very fact that he was what? That he was sympathetic and understanding. And brethren, this is exactly what we need to be. We need to be sympathetic and understanding about a people in doing what? And being willing to forgive. And having a forgiving attitude, having a forgiving aspect about us. Sometimes, brethren, it's easy for us to decide while we were away in the state of Alabama for the funeral of my brother, I visited with a friend there. And one of the things that this young man, he has grown in leaps and bounds over the years. And one of the things that he said to me is this right here. It's so easy for us to decide and look at people and try to decide whether these people are right or wrong for as their lives are concerned. Now, one of the very things that he stressed to me is he said, I'm not talking about whether we obey which we know that unless we obey the gospel and do the things that God has spelled out there, that there's not a way that these people have a hope of going to heaven. But brethren, sometimes if people, as they try to grow and as they try to develop, they don't do everything just like we do. And this is exactly what happens to a lot of people. And because you see, because everybody don't think the way I think, because everybody don't talk the way I talk, because everybody don't act the way I act, then they don't have a chance. And what have we done? We've set ourselves up as what? Judge and jury. And we need to realize, brethren, as we live in this life, we need to strive to understand people and understand the situation that they are in for as their lives are concerned. Look at another point, the kind of love that Jesus had for as the church is concerned. He was willing to do what? Pay the ultimate price. Acts 20, verse number 28. Take heed unto yourself and to the flock of which those be, to feed the church, which he's done what? Purchased with what? With his own blood. He paid the price. He was willing to do just that. You see, brethren, when we look at husbands, look, do we love our wives this way? You see, no greater love that a man would lay down his life for what? For a friend. We understand this. Well, what about our mates? What about that person that has loved us and that has stood by us and that have been there? Do we actually love them this much? Do we have this kind of love for them that we would be willing to give? Give what? Give the very best that we have for them. This is what he's telling us. This is the thing that he's telling us here. And another idea, brethren, is the very fact here when we stop and we look at the love that Jesus had. In John chapter 13, verse number 1, Jesus makes this point that those that were his, those that his family, he came to his own received him not. But here he simply shows that he came to his own. They were of the world and they didn't believe in him. You see, here, but Jesus, when he went to the cross, he did what? He died for them too, brethren. He died for them. He was willing to die for them. For those that were what? That were unlovable, for those that didn't love him, for those that didn't care about him. This is the kind of love husbands are to have for their wives as well. You see, brethren, sometimes when we look and we see the importance of this, we realize how important our life is as husbands. We understand the very fact that we become a husband because we understand that how God designed the home, and that there is to be a marriage between that of a woman and that of a man. And in doing that, we accept the responsibility of that of being the head of that home, the head of that family, and accept the responsibilities that go with that, and that we live our lives in such a way as to earn the reverence and respect of that of our wife, that person that we love and we cherish and that we've taken to be our mates, our bride for life. And that we then are to love them and that we are to have a love for them, just like Jesus had for that, whereas the church is concerned. And then notice verse 28 and 29. Verses 28 and 29 in this section. Here he says, so ought a man to love their wives as their own what? Now think about it. Brethren, this is one of the sad aspects about that, for as men are concerned in many, many situations. I don't know a man in his right mind that doesn't love his physical body. And I don't know of a man in his right mind that would do anything to harm his physical body in any way whatsoever. There's not a way that he would beat or batter his physical body. There's no way that he would take and crush his limbs. There's no way that he would take it and harm and break the limbs out of his own physical body. I don't know of a man that would deny himself the very nourishment that is needed for his physical bodies are concerned. You see, here's what he's telling us here. God is simply showing to us. A man, then, a husband, is to love his wife as he would love his own physical body. And that means, brethren, that he would take care. Just as he would take care of his physical body, he would take care of that as his wife is concerned. That person that has stood by him and have been there through the thick and the thin, that have been there, he should care for her and provide for her and take care of her in every way that he possibly can. Now, if there is ever one thing that is that is probably a part of for as our world and our society today is this right here. And that is abuse. Abuse in that where the home is concerned. And it's sad. I realize that there are some women that abuse their husbands. I understand that. But brethren, it is far, far greater with that for as the husband is concerned. And this ought not to be. This ought not to be. This ought not to be the situation. This ought not to be the way it is. Husbands shouldn't abuse their wives physically in any way whatsoever. Just like they don't abuse their physical body, neither should they abuse their wives. They should cherish them. They should care about them. They should be concerned about them in every way that they possibly can. And this is the sad commentary. This is the sad way it is in the lives of so many people. And one of the very things that you see when this is the situation, you see when husbands abuse their wives, then many times what happens? Children abuse their wives. Grandchildren abuse their wives. Brethren, this is usually a vicious cycle that just continues to be. That shouldn't be and ought not to be. And this is one of the things that people need to realize. God help us, brethren, to realize that God has blessed us with a great responsibility. As a husband, we are a part of the marriage. He has given us a responsibility. We need to shoulder that responsibility, accept that responsibility, and with every ounce of energy that is within us to carry it out. He has made us so that we can, that we do what? That we do everything that we can to earn the very respect and the reverence of that of our wives, and that we love them with every ounce of energy that is within us, and that we care about them as we would our own physical bodies. God help us, brethren, to realize, husbands, if husbands would do their part and do the things that they ought to do, the tell this story because every time I do a lesson on husbands, I'm reminded of it. And brethren, it is amazing how it is that people have this kind of thought. When I was in school back in the 70s, I went to school with a young man that was married to a young lady, and his concept was this, that he ought to whip his wife at least once or twice a week. And I think, what on earth what would cause you to think this kind of way, or even have this kind of an idea? Well, you see, when we read passages and we read into passages things that God never intended to be there, that's how we come up with things like this. And this is the situation. I'm reminded of the story that was told about the man who felt that way about his wife, and he said, it's been 2 or 3 weeks since I've seen my wife, and right now I'm just barely able to see her out of one eye. And that's usually what happens. But God help us, brethren, to realize that God has given to us the ability to reason and to think and to understand the design that God would have out of the home. And we need to respect what God's Word teaches concerning the home and follow those instructions and to the very best of our abilities. And then when we do the very best that we can, brethren, we still come up short. And we still fall short of being who we ought to be. And that's the reason why, as husbands, we understand this word, will you forgive me? And that will help us accomplish a great deal more with our lives. Lord willing, next week we will look at another chapter. If you have your paper with you, you can look on there and you can see what the next chapter is that comes after this, because that's where we will be, Lord willing, next Sunday morning.